45 ba? 45. 45 ba? Sakto ba? Nyara daw ha. Kung tanaw na to, this is 20 minus 13. Okay? So, that's a difference of, let's say, 7 hours. Okay? Unya, diri sa pikas, na 10 minutes minus 25. So, kung mobaro kag 60, gikan sa hours section, mahimo na lang ni siyang 6. So, naa kay 70 minutes nga minusan og 25. Okay? So, this becomes 6. This becomes 5 minus 2, 45. Oh, sakto ra there. So, that is how we got the 45 section. Okay? So, okay? Wa sa ko kakita ani nga kwanda. Karon pa sad ko naka sugap pod og ani nga solusyon. Okay? So, very unique pod ang discover ni Mr. Codino. Okay? But mo lagi, it took time, okay, to analyze nga this is the magic number nga ato ang basihan. If ever mulapas gani og 40 or equal to 40 ang difference between the R's, it only means that you were already borrowing, okay, from the R section. Okay? So, mo na ang sa solution ni Mr. Codino, guys. Okay? To correct the minutes part. Okay? Now, asa naman tong flowchart na to nga gibuhat ni Mr. Ibarra?
Next
Nabutang
page, sir.
nasa next page. Okay. So, let's see at the solution of Mr. Ibarra's, guys. Okay? To solve for the time. Okay? So, ang gibuhat sa diri ni Mr. Ibarra is unsa sad ni siya iyang style. Out unsa meaning out? Input. Okay? So, time in o time out. Okay? So, ang
Yes,
kang
sir.
Mr. Ibarra's po diri nga style is gi-convert sa niya tanan into minutes. Okay? So, wala lang siya mo gamit og formula, but if you try to zoom in on that code, okay, kana. Okay? So, makita nato diri guys, okay, ang timeout and the time in, okay? There is this very long equation here. Okay? So, wala gamiti og variable ni Mr. Ibarra, gidiretso na lang, okay? So, this formula nga gigamit ni Mr. Ibarra diri guys, as what you can see, di ba? Out modulo 100. Unsay gibuhat nato dira, di ba? That is us extracting the minutes section. Okay? O kani unsa man ni siya? Out divided by 100. This is the formula that we use to extract the hours section. And what is this 60? Okay? So, Mr. Ibarra, you would like to share? Unsa ang
Kuan,
60?
kuan, sir, since kuan kanang let's say kung mabutang kag 1800, i-divide na niya siya 100, so mabutang 18. So bali murag kuan, sir, baka nang iya i-multiply og 60 para makuha ang minutes.
Okay. So, na-gets ra ninyo guys ang 60 nga magic number? Okay? So, 60 referring to minutes. So, basically, ang gibuhat niya dire, okay, is that before subtracting the time in and the time out, gi-convert niya, nakita niya nga ang hours into minutes. Okay? So that it will be easier to do the subtraction kay pareha raman sila og unit of measurement tanan. Okay? So, mo na ang gibuhat dire. Okay? So, ang time out, which is, as you know, has been written in hours, hours ug minutes nga format. So gi-extract ang minutes, gi-extract ang hours gi-convert put into minutes, and as you can see gi-add ra na siya. And that line there, okay, represents the timeout. So as you can see, giminosan og unsa man. This is the time in nga part. Okay? So makita pud nato guys nga iya gyapon nang gi-extract ang minutes section, gi-extract pud niya ang hours section and converted the hours section into minutes by simply multiplying it with 60. Okay? Lingaw kayong programming no? Okay? So this is something di ninyo makatunan siguro sa previous subjects ninyo in algebra, but this is something that you will be discovering, okay, by thinking about how time actually works. Okay? So, even kaning sa kwano, kaning sa previous solution, okay? Wa sa ko kahuna-hunaan ni nga i-direct ni mo subtract pero mao lagi. Imuhan na pud siyang gukudon, okay? Ug correct ang time. Okay? So which is on the solution of Mr. Ibarra, gi-correct sa niya ang time daan para it will be easier to get the time difference. Okay? So again, both solution is well crafted. Okay? Gihuna-hunaan jud. Okay? So after that, unsa may gihimo nato diri balik si total as you can see gi-divide og 60 which is unsa man ang total. The total
Minutes or minutes. Kalimot
di,
ko brother.
di siguro total guys no. Okay? So next time ba when you make use of kwan gani kanang when you make use of variables, usually good when you say total, it involves addition nga operation. Okay? So kani siya total here actually represents the difference between two number. Okay? So mo na sa sunod try to select a variable name that is again gitawag nato nga self-documenting. Okay? So that variable nga pilion niya ninyo sunod should represent what it is used for. Okay? For example, dere is unsam ni siya? Time spent during parking, di ba? Okay? So, sige, padayon ta. Where were we na? So, kanina, extract na niya ang hours o na-extract na niya ang minutes. Okay. So, once the hours and minutes is extracted, then it will be easier for you to check, okay, this table na. Asa naman to? This table. Okay? So, magamit na nimo kung pilay bayranan. Okay? So, of course, before doing the computation, you would need at least to know kung unsa nga vehicle type ang gipili. So, makita nato dire sa iyang solusyon, okay, gagamit og switch nga statement. Kay again, switch statement is more convenient to use compared sa if else if nga statement. Labinag ang imuhang buhaton is a direct comparison sa imuhang input. Okay? Kay since kung gamit ramang ka if V is equal to M, if V is equal to C, or if V is equal to T. Okay? So once ma-identify na nimo what vehicle needed to be selected, okay, then you go into the computation. So as what we can see here, based sa problem, the first 3 hours will be rated free for the motorcycle, 30 for the car, and 50 for the truck. Okay? So looking at the formula, first 3 hours. Okay? So, base diri ang iyang gibuhat is if the number of hours spent is greater than 30, then anhi siya diri sa computation nga part. Okay? So, As you can see guys, ang gigamit niya dire is greater than. Okay? So that means if it is not greater than 3, then therefore it is unsa man less than or equal to 3, which is in this case mao ni iyang gigamit nga computation. Wherein unsa to? Kung motor free, kung car 30 pesos, kung truck 50 pesos. Okay? So ang gigamit niya diri nga strategy guys is kaning gitawag nato nga complements. Okay? So instead nga gamiton niya directly kaning naa diri nga condition first 3 hours which is moingon ka og unsam na siya less than or equal to 3, ang gigamit niya isang complement, okay, which is greater than 3. Okay, so again, this is another approach that you could use nga not necessarily kung giunsa pagsuwat ang problem, okay, mao ra po'y kopyaon nimo sa mga formula. You could tweak that out actually as long as of course ang condition, okay, imuhang na-satisfy. Okay? So, mao na ang iyang computation. Okay? So, again, I think nakuha na ninyo guys. Okay, ang first part sa problem we're in kung equal to 3 or less than 3. Okay? How you got that payment nga free, 30 og 50. Okay? So, what if the number of hours is greater than 3 hours? Okay? So, sa computation, as what you can see, fix naman na siya ang first 3 hours nga imong bayranan. Okay? So, that means na kay 30 pesos. Okay? And based sa problem, for an additional of 3 hours, you will be asked to pay 10 pesos for the motorcycle for the succeeding hours. Okay? And 10 pesos for the car. And of course, 25 pesos for the truck. Okay? For each succeeding hour na imuhang na-spent. Okay? So, if we look at the computation, okay, so ang iyang gibuhat diri, gi-minus lang niya ang compute pay with 3 to get the excess hours, then multiply it with the rate per hour. Okay? Pero, nakulangan lagi. I think naikulang. How about for the first 3 hours diri, Mr. Ibarra?
Sir?
Ang first 3 hours.
Abi na dili ma-count, sir, kay free na siya.
Pero sa car o sa truck, di ba na may 30 pesos o 50 pesos para sa truck?
Wait lang, sir. Sakto naman sa akong test case. Ako ra tingali na siyang gipareha og logic tanan sa motor, sir.
Sa motor. Okay?
Mm.
But again guys, kung hunahunahon na to ba, okay, base sa problem, if the time spent nimo sa parking lot, in this case, let's say is 4 hours. So, kung i-follow na to ang formula nga gigamit diri, compute
Ay,
pay is equal to hours minus 3 times 10. Dili ka ang kansi kung ikay tagiya sa parking lot.
kawag kay sir ko plus 30 o plus 50.
Okay. So, nakulangan ni siya.
Nakalimot ko
Okay.
butang, sir.
So, napa ni siya diri guys. Additional 30 for the first 3 hours. And of course, for the truck is plus 50. Okay? For the hours part. Okay? So, I think mo na siya. Now, pag test case ninyo, ni sakang no, ingani no? Ingani nga formula? Ni okay ra siya? Okay? But if let's say for example ba, kung ikay tagiya sa parking lot, okay, this is just kon lang ha, kanang ato lang i-scrutinize ba ang business model niya. Okay? Base ani nga rate. Kung ikaw ang tag-iya sa parkinganan, let's say for example, ni parking ang motor niabot og 3 hours and 59 minutes. So pilay mabayran kung ang stay sa motor is 3 hours and 59 minutes.
Wara gapon, sir.
Ah, okay. So kung magbase ta sa flow chart, ayahay kay ang motor no. Walay mabayaran kung 3 hours and 59 minutes, 'di ba?
Yes, sir.
Oh, the same is for this one. Kung let's say ni parking sila dira for 3 hours and 59 minutes, okay? Ang mabayaran niya 30 pesos ra, 'di ba? Nya diri same ra gyapon kung ni parking ang sakyanan dira for 3 hours and 59 minutes, ang mabayaran niya 50 ra. Okay? Now kung ikay tagiya sa parkinganan, 'di ba? It's a big loss for you. Kay nganuman kanang 59 minutes kung naapay laing ni parking ana niya, kung truck na siya additional 50 pesos, 'di ba? Kung anhi po diri sa car, imagine na siya 30 pesos kay first 3 hours good. 'Di ba? Naka-gets mo sa rationale, guys. Kung motor ang nagparking dira, imbis nga wa siya madawat tungod ani nga computation, but kung nilakaw ang motor og let's say 3 hours and 1 minute nga time, okay, okay ra siguro na kay naa may makapuli dayon. But what if nilakaw siya at 3:59 after 3 hours and 59 minutes? Okay, ang tag-iya will lose the opportunity of gaining an additional of 10 pesos for that almost 1 hour. 'Di ba? Nakakuha mo sa rasyonale. Okay? So, kung ikaw negosyante ka, okay? Kung mulapas na gani nag 3 hours, bisag 1 minute, 2 minutes pa na siya, i-consider na unta na nimo as an additional nga 10 pesos. Okay? Kay that is actually a loss in profit on the side of the businessman. Okay? Pareha ra gud na kasuway mo nang mo sakay mog taxi. Okay? Kinsa may mga tigsakayan og taxi diri. Okay? Si Igot, na may car si Igot di ay mo nang di mo sakay taxi kay na may personal car. Okay? But kaning mga sakyanan og taxi, di ba? Magbantay mo anang sa metrohan nga kung moabot na ganig murag 1 kilometer, di ba? Mao man na siya ang patak niya no for every kilometer ba na siya? Anha na mo patak ang additional cost. Okay? Di ba ang uban magbantay nga uy, moabot na gani na siya murag 99 meters bisa pag naapay mga 5 meters nga daganan ng taxi. Boss, naog na ko. Kay nga naman, kay kung moabot mag additional 1 kilometer, mo patak naman ang additional cost. Okay? So, morning usahay kasaputan sa mga taxi driver ba nga murag gamay na lang jud. Okay? Ilahad yung tuyoon nga palapason para moabot lag 1 kilometer para additional patak dayon sa taxi. Kay otherwise, ang kansis lag 1 kilometer. Okay? So anyway, that's just a kwan lang, Jod. Kana bang thinking about the business side. Okay? Kung ikaw businessman ka, mangita jud ka pamagi nga ma-increase nimo imong profit. Okay? But of course, if you're on the consumer side, advantage na para ninyo, di ba? Okay? So again, no, ang kansi kayo kung ikitagiyas parkinganan, kung mulakaw siya dirag 3:59, okay? Wala siya madawat kay free raman. Nya balik na pud ka after mga 30 minutes parking na pud ka balik. Okay? Mo na kung gada kag motor. Okay? But anyway, okay, this is our solution, guys, okay? For the Ayala parking lot. Okay? So dili jud kayo siya straightforward ang solusyon. Okay? It needs a bit of analyzation. Okay? Labi na diri dapita sa hours and minutes. I think most of you nagkaproblema tungod ani giunsa man ni siya pag-analyze. Okay? Because the concept, okay, of how the rate is to be computed, di ba? Dali raman, di ba? Masabtan ra ang problem. Nga for the first 3 hours makagamit day kaning imuhang relational operator to compute the amount. Ang problem jud ninyo, I think, is kani. Giun sa pagkuha ang hours ug ang minutes section. Okay? So I think that's the major problem of this number here. Okay? Ang pag-analyze unsa ang pag-breakdown ang time such that pwede nimo ma-direct og minus. Okay? So mo nang giingon nato guys, gamit kayo inyong stock knowledge. Stock knowledge ninyo about how clock works. Okay? And also, this is also the reason why we were also talking about number systems on the first place para naamoy idea how numbers actually work. Okay? So nakita nato nga if you have this format, di ba? Dili nimo mapareha og gamit ang arithmetic operation for decimal numbers. Kaysa decimal number, take note, ang weight biya sa tuang number is 1, 10, hundreds, and thousands. Okay? Take note, dire, ang maximum nato is only up to 60 before it recycles back to 0. Diba? Okay, kaya naman kay 60 kabuk different values dire from 0 to 59. Okay? So, mao na sa minute section. For the hours, you only be counting from 0 to 23, which is, unsa na siya? 24 different combinations. Okay? So, bantayanan niya na ninyo pag-ayo guys. Okay? So, daghan ang wala jud ka answer ani dapita. Okay? So, napoy daghan kayog nasayop jud sa unsa to nga problem. Usa sa problem nga with the highest casualty is ang
3, sir.
3. 3 ba to? Katong
Katong
grades.
grado-grado, sir. Oh.
Grado. Uy, di ni mao. Nga naman eh. 2 PC 212. Okay, so asa man diri likely nagka-problema sa grado, asa man tong problem. Activities. Okay, problem number 3. Grading system. Okay, so I think wala tay problema no sa average o right triangle. Simple raman kay to siyang arithmetic. But ang uban diri nagka-problema. Okay? So most of your test cases were correct, di ba? As you check upon it. But there is that one test case nga di jud ninyo makuha-kuha. And what test case would that be? I don't
Six.
know, sir.
Kanang
Kay
point 1.
hidden man.
Oh,
Okay.
9.1, sir.
So,
Problema na sa float,
9.1 sir,
sir.
di mo gana.
9.1, which is kani
Yeah.
ang ika-6. Ug unsa man day test case dira sa 6 nganong masayop man ako answer. Nganong ang mugawas is unsa ganito? Ang mugawas is base sa problem C to no?
Wala.
C plus ba to? Ang kasagaran
Walay.
ng mugawas? Okay.
Walay mo gawas, sir.
Walay
Walay
mugawas?
mugawas.
Siguro natin mugawas oy.
Problema, ako nag-isuyan, sir. Problema na sa float, sir. Dapat i-double siya. Kung gitrayan.
Double float.
Or ambot lang, sir. Kaya
Oy
nag-isuyan ko na
guys,
bal.
guys, nalimot mo. Okay? Ato anang na-discuss. Okay? Unsa ganito atong discussion about floats in selection statements. Don't use float for direct relation. Di ka mo gamit og equals, even, mga greater than or less than. Kay ngano man, the computer is not storing your data as you are expecting it to be. Okay, so let me give you here a sample code ha. Okay, nga logically kung magtan-aw ta, okay, okay, so let's say float a. A is equal to point 1 and ingon tag if A is less than point 0.1, so therefore ingon tag print if say A no, slash A lang. Okay. Else A plus okay. Okay, so let's look at this example, guys. Okay, if you try to evaluate this, nganong di man siya mo zoom. Okay, if we try to evaluate this, we have a variable a which is a floating point. Okay, so giset nato ang value ni a to point 1, and then we compare it if a is less than point 0.1. Okay, unsa may answer dire? Okay, anyone? Dugay lagi kay mo answer. Is point 0.1 less than point 0.1? Unsa
Is
i-print?
ang kanang Elsa
A or plus A?
plus
Plus A.
Plus A. Lagi ang uban ba? Gatutok jud. Sa lisudan yun. Di ba? Point A is less than point A. That's false. So, ang i-print is plus A. Di ba? Hmm. How about this one? Di ba? Point 9. Is point 9 less than point 9? Unsay i-print?
Yung plus A.
Bilang sure. Okay. Yung siya, ayay, murag na siguro ni ilad-ilad ani si Serda. Okay? But again, if you look at it logically, di ba, this will always evaluate to false. Di ba? Kaya nga nung false man, because point 9 is equal to point 0.9. And the condition states that if point 0.9 ba is less than point 0.9, which is not true, because it is not less than, but rather equal. The same is for point 0.1. But as we run the code, what have you noticed? What have you noticed, guys? Makapataas og kilay, no? Okay. Bitaw. And this is the reason why you don't use floating point numbers. Okay? When you do comparison. Okay? So makita nato dire, bitaw no bugo lagi ning computer. Okay? At first, we can see that it was evaluated correctly. We have point 0.1. Okay? Is it less than point 0.1? So nisulti siya. No, that's false. Because it is equals. So sakto ra ang i-evaluate. But tanawa si point 0.9. So point 0.9 is less than point 0.9 di ay? So it's true? Okay? Lapad og ulo no? Okay? Ngano man, what happened?
ang
Okay?
A sir.
Ang A, what happened to A?
Duha man kabuk A sir nga. Ang kaning ikaduha sir gabi siya sa first nga A nga value.
Ha? Ang ikaduha nga A kani?
Oo, silbi ang para nako sir ang kaning A is equal to 0.9. Wala siya gabi sa diri nga sa ubos kani siya sa babaw niya. Na 0.1 is less than 0.9 na. Prime ka na.
Uh, Again, base sa equation, all we did here was create a variable a to store our constant value, di ba? So nga to ang gi-compare diri is actually we are comparing this. Point 1 is less than point 1. Okay? The same is also true for this one. We are comparing A, which has a value of point 0.9, if it is less than point 0.9. Okay? So ingan ara actually ang ato ang gibuhat. But makita nato from this one, it was evaluated as true nga mas gamay daw si point 0.9 kaysa ni point 0.9. Okay? Unsa toy ako ang gihatag nga explanation ninyo ani before? Ha? What explanation did we use gani for this one? Okay? How do you actually compare, okay, for equality, especially when you are working with, okay, if you are working with floating point number inside your tawag ano inside your tawag ano inside your condition, okay? So wala ninyo mabasa na siya sa kwan guys sa notes niya asam na dapitas notes. That was in the notes asa to dapita. Okay, wait sa let me browse over it asa man to nako naputang condition asa man to dapita na butang inalimot man ko. Okay. So this part sa notes ninyo guys, okay? Okay? Testing for equality with doubles. Okay? So in this part sa inyong notes, okay, it was stated here which statement will be print if you are trying to compare, okay, floating point numbers. Okay? So basically, this will not give you a correct answer just like katong gibuhat nato katong sa point 1 o point 9. So how do you compare floating point numbers jud ay? Okay? So to compare floating point numbers, okay, you check for a so-called tolerance nga pwede nimo ma-consider kung equal ba ang duha. Okay? What's the reason for this? Why are we doing this? Okay? Kung magtanaw mo ba, gi-minus lagi na nimo sir, okay? Ang double nga y with the value nga i-compare niya. Okay? So since kani dili man ni siya mo equal, nganong di man siya equal nga when you perform this operation, di ba? Square root of 2, kung i-multiply na nimo, dapat 2 ra pud gihapon, di ba? Ang answer na niya. But it seems like, okay, kung magtanaw ka arithmetically speaking, that is correct. It should evaluate to true. But once translated as a program, okay, y would actually not be storing that value of 2. Okay? And why is that so? Take note, di ba naatay gitawag nga float ug naatay gitawag nga double. Okay? Ang float, we know that it could store up to pila to? 4 or it will store the number as to 4 bytes, di ba? And you also have the so-called double which is actually able to store your floating point value up to 8 bytes. Now, if you have remembered guys, okay, when we did the conversion from decimal to binary, okay, katong with this with decimal points, naka-encounter ba mo nga when you convert it to binary nga di jud siya mahuman-human? Okay? Kanang gitawag nato og non-terminating, di ba? Remember mo ang nga term, non-terminating, wherein ang imuhang decimal point when you do division, dili mo undang. Okay? So that is what is actually happening here. When that value, kanang floating point value, was stored into your computer's memory, dili or there are cases wherein dili niya ma-fully store ang exact value sa memory. Okay? So just like what happened here sa ato ang example nga sa to point 1 and point 9. It seems like ang point 1 was stored in the memory correctly. So that's why we got here um, an answer of plus A. But there is a point 9, it seems like, okay, point 9 was stored in the computer's memory which is actually less than the value nga dapat natong store which is point 9. Now, unsa ko yung value ani niya? For some reason, it seems like it could have been printed like 0.8999999999999 so on and so forth. That's why when we run this code, it shows nga A is less than 0.9. Okay? So, if we try to verify that, okay, budget lang. Asa naman to? Paeng, wait sa paeng. Okay. Ano na to? Pwede ba kanino? Okay. So, before comparing, let's try to print the value of A. Percent F then A. Ano na to? Makita ba nato pilay actual value jud ni A? So, let's put slash n sa dira. Let's try to see the accuracy of the value. Okay. Nga ato ang na display. Okay. So, unfortunately, there's no other way of displaying the double type correctly. Ito, no? LF, madapat to LF. Try lang daw na to. Okay. So, dili makita jud ang iyahang actual value. Okay, na round off na siya. Try daw dire. LF. Okay, so it seems like di jud. Okay. So, again, kung magtanaw lang ta dire, and you check out the condition, di ba? It should be putting plus A. But still, when we run the code, the actual comparison actually evaluates to this one. Okay? So, mo ni ang gitawag nato ba nga lisod i-check nga mga condition gani kay even though pag print nato dire it displays 0.9, but when we evaluate the actual value inside the memory, nganong na true na hinuon ni siya nga A is less than 0.9. Okay? So, when we print it, sakto ra. But with the actual computation, it resulted to true. 'Di ba? Nga less than jud siya. And again, the reason for that is kaning gitawag nato guys nga IEEE 754 nga floating point unsa man to inindot ani nga pan floating point nga standard. Okay? So we're in, let's say for example, try nato dire. ang point 1, okay, if that is to be stored in the computer, okay, this is how it was stored inside the computer. Okay? So kung point 9, okay, take note, in terms of binary, this is how it is stored, ang point 1. Okay? Kung anhita diri sa point 9, okay, tanawa ang point 9 guys, how it was stored. Okay? So it was stored as 0.8999999. And that is the reason why we have sayop ang iyang output. Nahimo siyang less than. Okay? So again, it has all something to do with how the actual value was stored in the computer's memory. Okay? Kani, take note, translated value naman ni siya. Okay? So makita nato nga kung unsa to i-save nato is 0.9, sakto man unta nga 0.9 gi-compare ni 0.9 nganong sayop man gihapon. Again, that's why there's a ruling here in C nga if you're gonna be doing comparison, lihayan jud na nimo si floating point. Okay? So, based sa problem, okay, ang nahitabo dire is that, asa naman to? Okay. Ang gihatag manggod ni sir na ang manggoy decimal point. Oy, asa naman to? Asa na ito? Kapuya ni kog siya maka lisang, sorry kay daghan kayong klase gi-monitor. Okay? So mo ni nakaapan gud ani base sa tuang problem nga gihatag with the grading system. Since ang range was that of na ay floating point number, okay, automatic dayon ang gibuhat sa uban is kung unsa to'y range sa floating point number, maoras sad dayon ang ilahang directly gigamit. Okay? So that's why you were unsa man siya tempted to use floating point number during comparison. Okay? And because of the test case, okay, the rest of the test case probably okay ra kay ang gi-compare is greater than 0.1 man kung tan-aw nato, di ba? So dali ra jud kay niya ma-predict kung greater than ba or less than kay naman kay difference nga 0.1. And the problem occurs here na. Okay? Katong ang iyahang range nga gi-compare ninyo is apil na ang kaning ato ang limit diri wherein na ay equal sign probably nga gigamit ninyo. Okay? Greater than or equals, di ba? So I think most of you here are using katong if grade is greater than or equal to 68.1 and less than or equal to 70. Okay? Mo na gigamit ninyo no to solve. Mao ba, guys? Ang gigamit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, agto dito nagka-problema. Okay? So, again, when comparing, okay, labi nag floating point number, there is a case man sa jud nga dili mahilihayan nga dili mo compare og floating point number. But if you do compare floating point number, okay, based dire nga example nato, mag-set jud ka og tolerance as to how many decimal place ang imuhang itugot nga i-consider niya to make this condition true. Okay? For example, ang tolerance nato dire is giset nato og 1 raised to the power of -10. So that is basically kwan na siya, di ba? How many na siya? Decimal places. 9 decimal places. Okay? Ang ato ang interpretation ani niya. So that means pwede ka maka-tolerate og 0.0000 until 1 nga decimal place for you to consider this as true. Okay? So basically kaning tolerance murag ang precision ba as to where and or basically how do you say this um kana lagi tolerance. Okay? So you can tolerate a difference of 0.00000001 nga decimal place. Okay? Kung masud pa siya dira, then therefore i-consider nimo siya to be true. But kung let's say gani ang difference nila is something like 0.001, which is too big for the tolerance, so therefore i-considered na niya to be false. Okay? Na gets ba ninyo guys ang buot na akong ipaibot? Okay? Let's say moingon ko maghatag tag actual number, okay? So let's say ang difference ani niya no when you do the subtraction is let's say 0.001. And you set here a tolerance of 0.00001. Okay? So that means if you subtract these two values, niya mo generate siya difference nga 0.001. That means ang difference niya is too big compared sa tolerance ng imong gihatag. So this will generate a false nga condition. Okay? So that means para nimo dako ra kayo ang difference to make it equal ang duha ka number. However, if ang imuhang difference is let's say for instance is something like 0.00000001. Okay? If that is the difference when you subtract the variable and the constant value, pwede rin na nimo ma-consider to be true. Kay nga naman, ang tolerance ng imong gihatag is up to 5 decimal place raman. So that means kung mo differ siya by 0.000001, you can say nga equal ra siya. Okay? So mao ni purpose ani niya guys nga nagbutang ta ning tolerance nga value. Okay? So nganong dako man kaayo, of course, we are using double nga data type man diri. So when you say double data type, di ba, it can accommodate up to how many decimal place ganito? Pila to ka decimal place ang gisupport ni double compared ni float?
8, sir.
Okay, nya kang float,
Upat.
upat ra ba? Ang decimal place, murag 6 man siguro sa
6,
float.
sir. 6.
Okay, nya ang double,
19.
19.
Ay,
15.
15 ra di ay. Okay? So, mo na siya ang reason, guys. Okay? So, again, kung you will be comparing values, you have to take note, okay? Nga kung pwede malihayan ang mag-compare og floating points, lihay jud. But if dili jud malihayan nga kung mo-compare og floating point, take note of the so-called tolerance. Okay? Kay dako kay na siya impact sa imuhang code. Okay? Okay. So I think that solves the problem, okay, for the grades, okay? So most of you nakakuha ang maggrado sa grades, but of course, naiuban jud nga wala ka perfect. Kay nga naman, naamay usa ka test case nga wala ma-check tungod atong test case nga equivalent to 70.1 wherein ni-display siya og C plus ba to? Okay? So, mao na siya guys. Ang problema ato nga problem. Okay? So, if you try to run that code again, okay, i-try ko no. Okay? Try to reconstruct your code. Okay? Para ka ng 70.1 is dapat mo return siya og unsa to nga value? B no? B ra ba to? Test case 6 o B minus di ay. So dapat ani siya musud nga category ka ng 70.1. Okay? So try na ninyong answer balik. Okay, so I think mao na siya guys katong sa ato ang quiz. Okay? So more of this sa ato ang midterm exam. Okay? So take note, ayaw ninyo kalimti, okay? Ang gamit ni division for integers o unsa ka importante ang modulo operator, okay? So maybe wala kayo kahuna-huna ang uban mo gamit og modulo operator, okay? But it is a very common operator nga gamiton sa programming kanang si modulo. Okay? So probably during your days sa senior high wala kayo no. Wa kay mo ma-explore or wa kay mo ka-explore aning modulo operation wherein ang i-return niya is remainder. But when you do programming guys, gamit kay na siya si modulo. And you will be encountering more problems that will be using the modulo operator. Okay? So hopefully that clears up okay the problem sa quiz. Okay, maura man to challenge kayo. Ang uban good nakaingon good di na jud ko mo visit sa Ayala. Okay? Mo ni nakadag visit sa akong exam ang Ayala nga problem. Gidawit jud ta no. Paita. So anyway, let's make more landmarks. Okay, sa ato ang problems. Okay? That you will soon learn to hate or love ba depende ninyo kung maka-answer ba dili. So anyway, let's try to review, okay? Kaning gitawag nato nga tips and common programming errors, okay? When you are using mga selection statements. So let's just summarize, okay? Those things nga to ang na discuss na, okay? So number one tip, okay? You could always use complement of less than, which is equal to, greater than, or equal to. Okay? Or you could also use the complement of greater than, which is equal to, less than, or equal to. So that means if you encountered a problem that would likely use this operation, take note, I would suggest that instead of using greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you instead use less than or greater than. Okay? So, kana siya. Nya, dangling else statement. So, I think nasa gyapon ni siya sa notes, ang dangling else statement. So, take note, errors like dangling else statements are easily created and are difficult to debug. Okay? So, one technique for avoiding dangling else statement is to make use of braces. Okay? So that's why I'm always emphasizing na even if usara ka statement ang i-perform sa imong else if statement, always enclose them in curly braces. Okay? Okay, again, if you have read your notes, okay, there's actually also a discussion here about your dangling else statement. Okay? So one problem ana niya is something like this, di ba? If you failed to make use of curly brace and construct your statement like this, ang imong hunahunaon would be ang inclusive sa if x is greater than 0 is kani. Di ba? Because of how we wrote the code. But take note, spaces are irrelevant in C. Okay? Take note, when you use the else statement, ang pangitaon niya nga if is kung kinsay pinakaduol niya o kinsa may pinakaduol niya nga if statement. Layo ra kaayo si x is greater than 0. Ang pinakaduol ni else diri is si y is greater than 0. So therefore, ang kani nga else, ang partner niya is dili kani. Okay? Kung dili, ang partner ni else is kani. Okay? So that's why, again, make it a habit guys. If you are using if else nga statement, mas maayo yung bisag usara na kalinya ang statement within that if statement or else statement, ibutang na lang jud na nimo og curly brackets. Okay? Okay, again, that is a very common problem. Okay? So, in actuality, kaniday nga code is equal to this one. Okay? So, mo ni ang partner ni else. Okay? So, make it so nga butangin na lang jud na siya og curly brackets when you write your code. Okay? To avoid error. Okay? Kay even though if moingon ka if else statement sir kay usa man na siya, take note. Kani nga statement is considered as a single statement. Bisan pag igtan-aw nimo daghan man na siya linya, usara na siya ka statement, usara na siya ka if else statement. Okay? Di ba kahinumdum mo ato katong sa if else if nga instead nga nag-nested if statement ta to make the code treated as a single statement, we made use of if else. Okay? So I think asam to dapita tong if else. Okay? So kani nga part sa tuang example, di ba? Okay? So what else? As o kaniday no wala ni siya sa ato ang notes kaning tips and common programming errors. Ako lang niya itong i-update ato ang notes guys to include this one on our discussion. Okay, so tip number 3. Okay, expressions in a control expression in an if statement may have a side effect as shown. So may pasabutan ng side effect. Okay, are you still familiar with this one, guys? Okay, and kani? Okay. So given that A is equal to 0, okay, unsa may evaluate ani niya, true or false? How will this be evaluated? Okay, anyone? And kani, how can this be evaluated? Okay. Unsa ganito kalahian na ng A++ o plus A? Okay, naana siya sa topic on operators nato in C. What's the difference between those two? Anyone? Hello?
No answer. Ang A++, 0 plus 1. Then plus A.
0 plus 1. Okay, niyang
1, 1
plus
plus.
A,
1 plus 0. Ay, oh.
1 plus 0.
Oh.
Dili. Okay. Unsa ganito itawag na to ani? A++ o plus A?
Increment.
Increment, yeah. What kind of increment? This one is
post increment.
post niya kani
Pre.
pre-increment. Okay. So how do they differ di ay? Okay, so if I have a variable b here, di ba? And I do a plus plus here. And here is plus plus a. Given that a is equal to 0. Okay? What is the value of b here? Okay, so again, this is something that you need to remember. Okay, naani siya sa discussion nato on operators. Okay? Take note, with post increment, ang buhaton ani niya guys is iyahasang ipasa si A padung kang B before actually incrementing it. So that means B here will still be equal to 0. Pre-increment would allow you to increase the value of A first before assigning to B. So B here will be equal to 1. Okay? So wala ra nay problema guys if let's say for example sa imong statement is ging-ani ra nimo a plus plus or plus plus or plus plus a. Okay? So wala ray problema nga na because let's say if a here is 0, this will become 1 after the statement and plus plus a will still be equal to 1, di ba? I-increment naman niya. But things would differ if you are to assign them on a variable. Okay? You should know that concept of pre-increment and post-increment. Okay? Kay delikado kay na siya. If you fail to notice which comes first, ang pag-increment ba or ang pag-assign? So take note, post-increment, i-assign sa niya ang value before i-increment. Ang pre-increment, i-increment sa niya ang variable before i-assign. So if you look here on these two statement that we have, if a here is 0, okay, nya moingon kag a++, this will be evaluated as false. Nganong false man? Ang evaluate man niya diri 0. And what is 0? As what we said, 'di ba, with selection statement, kung 0 gani ang value dira, it is equivalent to false. Diri therefore, okay, given that a is 0, ang gibuhat diri is gi-evaluate tan man niya si a daan before gi-check. So a here becomes 1. So this will be evaluated as true. Okay? So, mo na mga bantayanan sa ninyo guys. When to use plus plus A or A plus plus. Okay? So, mga concept na siya, mga common programming errors. Ngayon dapat bantayanan. Okay? So, let's clear that first. So, another tip, encapsulate the statement inside braces if you have more than one statement after if or else in an if-else statement. Again, this is in relation with number 2, okay? To avoid dangling else statement. Okay? So might as well kung naay mga statement block, okay, nga gitawag natong optional, butangin na lang jud na siya og statement block. Okay? To avoid problems with, of course, curly brackets. Okay? So again, katong discussion na to ganina, okay? Do not use equals operators with floating point numbers. Okay, so floating point numbers are seldom exactly equal to a required value. So when you need to test for equality, such as on the example, if B ba is equal to A, okay, nya floating point si A ug B, you make use of tolerance value. Okay? So, unsa man ang FABs, FABs. So, absolute value for floating point. Okay? So, ABS, absolute value. So, unsa ganin ang absolute value, guys?
Any negative numbers or
Okay.
positive.
Any negative number, i-positive niya. So, gamit kay na siya when you do subtraction. Yeah, you don't care if mas dako si A or mas dako si B because it will always give you a positive value. Kaya nga to ang purpose diri is makabawra ta pilay difference sa duha. Okay? So if the difference sa duha is perting gamaya, even small than 0.000001, then pwede ra nato siya ma-considered as true. But if ang iyahang difference, again, is let's say for example, would be 0.000001, okay, that would render this condition to be false. Diba? Because 0.00001 is greater than this tolerance value nga imuhang giset. Okay? However, if ang imuhang difference between the two would be 0.0000001, okay? Since mas gamay man siya sa imong tolerance value, this will be considered as true. Okay? Whereas the other one is considered as false. Okay? So mga, again, tips when you do your program. Selections with floating point number. Ow. Yes, kita. Okay, so number 6 tips. Do not forget to use break statement when the cases in a switch statements are exclusive. Okay? So, it is a good practice po today gihapon nga if you are using switch statement, okay? Even though even though let's say for example nga ni sulod na siya sa usa ka how do we call this? Usa ka condition sa imong case, okay? You should always terminate your case statement with a break statement. Okay? Kay unsa ganito yung mahitabo guys, if you failed to put a break statement, it will simply overflow to the next condition. Okay? So ato na pud tong na-try last time. Okay? Nga sa unang case gani ni true na nya wa nimo mabutang i-break after executing all the statement within that case, it will render the next case statement to be true. So i-execute pud niya appeal. Okay? So you must issue that break command para mo gawas siya sa imong switch statement. Okay? So napunta, while not necessarily an error, it is a poor programming practice to write a switch statement without a default label. Again, unsa gani ng default gani nga label sa switch statement? It is equivalent to unsa? Kung sa
Else.
if. Okay. So it will be equivalent to the else statement. So take note with the switch statement, kung biya na siya very specific, okay, of the value nga imong gi-compare. So always put there a default value for those conditions nga dili makover sa imong mga case. Okay? So as what we can see there, even though wala ray buhaton si default, okay, nagbutang ra pud ta dira og something that it would do like mo-issue ka og alert. Okay? So mo na si /a. Okay? Sa ato ang unsay tawag ana niya? Um escape character. Okay? So aside from your /n which is new line, na kay /a which is used to issue an alert sa imong computer. So it will generate a beep sound kana si /a. Nya exit unsa man ang exit function. Okay? So it's just allow you to terminate your program from executing. Okay? So that's again optional for you guys. You need not show that. So, unsa man ang exit 100? Unsay 100? 100 is any value that you would like to return once you execute your code or once you exit your code. So, mura ra pod nig equivalent katong nag-create ta og int main nya nag-return 0 ta. Okay? So, pwede na nimo gamiton ang integer dira as your reference nga nisulod siya ani nga statement ug pag-exit niya sa program kung mo issue gani na siya return value nga 100, that means this is the one that caused your program to exit. Okay? So more na gamit ni exit function. Okay, so another tip, the most common C error is using the assignment operator in place of the equal operator. Okay? Assignment operator o equal operator. Okay? So daghan kayong mga sipyat gihapon ani. Nga instead of using double equals to check for equality, ang gamiton is ing ani. Okay? So common problem. Okay. So, tip number 9, it may be an error to place a semicolon after the if expression. Okay? So, take note, the semicolon is used to terminate a statement. In this case, if you put a semicolon after the if statement, then therefore, wala siya'y statement nga i-perform. Even though gibutangan nimo sa ubos like something like this. Okay? So again, if you do this, nga after sa imuhang if condition, nagbutang ka dira og semicolon, okay, that would generate, okay, basically the compiler would allow that. Okay, pero ang logic niya is that it will not be able to print this whatever it is that you like to print. Kay nga naman, mura mag-issue kag command nga after this if statement, wala ra siya buhaton. Okay? So, mo na gipasabot ani niya. Kung imuha na siyang butangan og semicolon after the if statement. And because of that, kaning else nga naa sa ubos, okay, would generate a compile time error. Kay nga naman, si else mangita man jud na siya og if nga statement. Now, since giterminate man nimo ang if statement diri, that means walay laing musunod niya. Walay else if, walay else. Okay? So, mo na siya guys. Okay. It will generate a compile error when your else is without a matching if. Mo na ipasabutan na niya. Okay? So, in cases like this, ngayon mo giterminate si if statement. So, si else mawagtangag partner kay magpangita man jud na siya if. Okay? Because you can only use else when there is an if statement. Okay? So, number 10, it is a compile error to forget the parenthesis if in the if expression. Okay? So, again, in relation to this one, okay? Na kay duha ka open parenthesis and you failed to close it. Okay? So, every time nga mo gamit kag parenthesis in C programming, always make sure nga nana siya pares. Okay? Kay it also has to do something with the evaluation of your code. I-check man na sa imong compiler nga naipares ang imong mga parentheses. So if you failed to close an opening parenthesis, so it will generate an error. Okay? So tip number 11. Okay? So it is compiler error to put a space between the following relational operators. So when you use equals, not equals, greater than equals, or less than equals, okay, masayop ka ana. Okay, or it will generate again a compile error. Unsa man ang space between, kana bang magbutang kag greater than nya space equals. Okay? So the proper way to write it should be no space in between. So this is the wrong way of doing it. This is the correct way of doing it. Okay? Unsa pay posible nga makakause og error if you reverse them. That means unahon nimo ang equals, then ang not operation, or unahon nimo ang equals, then ang greater than, or equals, then ang less than. Okay? So that would also generate a compile error. Okay? Kay wala kasabot si sian na unsa na siya nga operator ang ganahan nimong gamiton. Okay? So tip number 12, it is a compile error to use a variable rather than its integral constant as a value in the case label. Okay? So, unsa may pasabutan na? It is compile error to use a variable rather than an integral constant as a value in the case label. So, when you are trying to compare, okay, using case statement, take note, ang case statement nimo dili pwede nga mogamit kag variable diri. Let's say mo putang kag A, ana. Wherein si A could change anytime. It must be a constant value. So moingon kag case, butang jud kag value dira for baron, or case if you want to compare a character, okay? This must be a constant value. Dili pwede variable nga mausab-usab nimo. Okay? So that is not allowed in C to put a variable in your case statement. Number 13, it is compile error to use the same constant in two case labels. So again, dili pwede na i-duplicate nga constant value when you are using case. So kani dili ni siya mahimong duplicate kay nga naman this is an integer and this is a character. the integer value of 4 here is not equal to the numerical number 4 of your integer. Okay? So number 14, logical operators requires 2 ampersand, especially when you're using and your or. Okay? So it is a logic error to code them with only 1. Okay? Unsa man nang pasabutan ng code only 1. Let's say for example, naa kay 5 nga value, okay? Nya imuhang i-AND with 4. Unsa to result ani guys? Okay? So maybe for some, i-check nila ani, it will return true. Kay nga naman, take note, when you use ampersand, di ba? This will be evaluated as, unsa ganito guys? Basta dili zero, it will be evaluated as true. This will be evaluated as true. So the result is also true. Pero unsay value? It could be 1. But if you do this, unsa may result ani niya? This will give you 4. So maghunahuna niya ka, this is true, and because nag-return siya 4, it is also true. But again, take note, there might be mga test cases nga dili ni siya mo apply kay nganuman. Okay? Take note guys. Okay? In cases like this, let's say 5 and 1. Wingon sa kag 5 ampersand 1. 'Di ba? 5 is again considered as true, 1 is considered as true. This will return also true. But kani kung mag-ingon kag 5 and 1, this will actually give you 0. Nakahinumdum pa mo ani? Nganong 0? Again, ang binary sa 5 is 0, 1, 0, 1. Ang binary sa 1, oh, sayop di ay. Di day na 1 supposed to be. 2 di ay. Ang ako ang example. Unta. Okay? Ang 2 is 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. Okay? So when you do the bitwise AND, take note, iyahara nang i-perform ang AND operation bit by bit. Okay? So 0 and 1, that is 0, 0 and 1 again, that is 0, 1 and 0, that is 0, 0 and 0, that is 0. So that's why it will be evaluated as false. Okay? So take note, a single AND indicates a bitwise operator. Okay? Nakahinumdum pa mo ng bitwise operator, guys? Hello? Do you still remember bitwise operator? Let's say moingon kog 7 and 8. Unsay result? Again, when you perform bitwise operation, ang buhaton lang ninyo i-convert na ninyo into binary. Okay? After converting it into binary, you perform the AND operation bit by bit. So, 1 and 0, di ba? That is 0. 0 and 1, again, that is 0. So, the result for this is 0. Okay? So, take note, different ang 7 double ampersand 8 because this will give you what? A value of 1. Nganong 1 man? Because this is evaluated as true and true. So that will also be equal to true. Kay again, 7 and 8 are considered as true because they are non-zero. Okay? So in C, when you evaluate a value, if it is non-zero, it is considered to be true. It will only become false if the value is equivalent to 0. Mo nang bantay-bantayan na ninyo guys when you are using the AND or operation. Lahi siya sa single AND, lahi pod ng double AND. Ang double AND, mao na siya to ang gitawag nga logic, or in some books, they also refer to it as Boolean operator. Whereas kaning single and, okay, we call that as your bitwise operator. Okay? So it's very useful when manipulating bits. Okay? And what else? It is generally a logic error to use side effects in the second operand in the logical binary expression as shown below. O, la, nawag tang lagi ang below. Asa man ang below ani. Okay? So, nakuwangan. Okay, ang sa ganito example ani moingon kag A plus plus and minus minus B. For example lang. Okay? So, something like this. Okay? So, unsa may kuyaw ani niya. Okay? So, let's say kung gamiton na nimo sa if nga statement. Okay? Unsa may kuyaw ani niya if you are using this in an if statement. Okay? So, if let's say for instance na kay if nga condition nga mo gamit lang kag A ampersand B, okay? We know that when you are using the AND operation, di ba natay gitawag nga short circuit evaluation? Kahinumdum pa mo ato guys? Short circuit evaluation. Unsa ganinang short circuit evaluation, sir? That means before niya i-evaluate si B, okay, i-evaluate sa niya si A. If A here is like a non-zero value, let's say A is 1, di ba? To check the output, iyahasang tanahon si B para makabaw siya kung ang output ba is true or false. Okay? Do you still remember that? Short circuit evaluation. Katubang example nato ba nga if naa kay switch, di ba? Tulo ka buok galinya nga switch nga naka-series. Okay? Kung ganahan ka mahibaw kung muon ba ang suga, di ba? I-check nimo daan ang kaning switch dire. I-check nimo sa switch dire kung naka-close, makaingon ba ka nga musiga na ang suga? Dili pa, di ba? Di pa. Pero as you check the next switch, kung naka-open gani na siya, is there a need to check the third switch? Dili na, di ba? Kay nga naman, pag-check pa lang nimo ni switch A or switch B, si switch A naka-close man, si switch B naka-open man, obviously di jud na musiga ang suga. Kay bisan pag naka-close ni siya ang switch C nimo, there is no way nga musiga ang suga because naka-open naman dire. Okay? And that is what we call as short circuit evaluation. Okay? That when you evaluate your expression, if mo false na gani na siya dira, there's no need to check for C. Kay kabaw naman kang expression at this point would cause the output to go off. Same rapod na diri guys. Okay? If si A gani diri, naka-zero gani na siya, there's no need to check for B. Okay? Or if A here is 1, then there's a need for you to check for B. Now, why is this dangerous? Okay? Why is this dangerous? There are cases, manggod, when you do the evaluation, okay? Take note, ganahan ka murag iusa nimo ba ang pag-plus ni A appeal sa expression, ang pag-minus ni B appeal sa expression. Now, what if, okay, the value of A here is -1? Okay? Nya, let's say the value of B here is 5. Okay? What will now be the value of A and the value of B after the expression? Okay? Sige ka na. What is the value of A and the value of B after the expression is executed? La 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 la. A here is pila?
Unsa na sir, negative 1 na sir.
Unsay negative 1? Oh, negative 1 si A. Initially. Nya si B initially is positive 5. If I execute the if statement, okay? What will the value of A and B na? Okay. La, gamit ni compiler. Dali. Okay, so take note, post increment. Ang usa pre-increment. Okay? So i-evaluate niya guys, tanawa. Unsa may gamiton niya nga value ni A diri i-evaluate? Would it be 0 or would it be negative 1? Okay? So this is a concept of pre-increment and post-increment. What would be the value of A? Okay? Oh, sige. Ato ang gamiton ng compiler nato eh. Diba? Puslan man, naamantay compiler dire. So, let's try to use the compiler. Okay? So, para makita nato. So, naatay integer lang atong gamiton. Value for A and B. Okay? Pila to si A? Negative 1. Yeah, si B is equal to 5. Okay? So, i-print lang nato ang value ni A ug ang value ni B at first. Okay? So, in the expression, you have A plus plus and ito, ampersand B minus minus B dahil. Minus B. So again, ato arang gamiton kunuhay ang expression so we can terminate that after and we then display the value of A and B again after the expression. Okay? So we execute the code and nakuangan taog B is equal to 5 na semicolon and kanara man siguro. Okay? O nganong na percent B man eh. Okay. So let's look at the evaluation. Okay? So something like this. Okay? So ato na lang butangan di ay. Print if. Okay? So as what we can see here, pagpara na to sa to ang expression, okay? Nisulod. So meaning this expression was evaluated to be true. Okay? So after the expression, the value of A now is 0 and the value of B is 4. Okay? Now, if I change A here to 0, okay, what would be the output now be? Anyone? Okay, pwede rin nyo ibutang sa chat box. What would be the value of the output B? Unsa may 1? 1 si A, 1 si B, mo display ba ang nisulod or mo display na siya ni gawas? Okay, sige. So A is 1. How about si B? Okay, what will be the value of B? Okay. So A is 1. And what about B? What is the value of B? Okay, anyone? Unsay value ni B kaha? Okay, so without using any compiler, what do you think is the value of B? Hello, guys? Come on. 5 minutes before bagting. Anyone? Okay, so the B will now be 6. Okay, according to Kabag, galibog ko, yun sa niya pagka 6. Okay, so B here originally is 5. After performing minus minus, mahimo siyang 6 or mahimo siyang 4. Okay. Ni try ra daw. Gitry ni mo execute kabag sa compiler. Murag it's hard to imagine nga mahimo siyang 6 knowing that ang pinakaduol diri nga value is you are subtracting 1. Okay? So ang uban ingon nga 4. Okay? So let's execute the code. Okay? And pano-split na pod. And nobody really got the answer. Okay? Can you imagine guys? Nganong wala ma-change si B? Bitaw no isip. What happened? Why is B not changed? Nganong si B5 gihapon? Ganina when A is -1, nahimong unsay value si B? 4. Okay? Kay ngano man? Take note, di ba? Pre-increment o post-increment. Okay? Ang gibuhat niya at first, okay? When A, take note, when A was equal to -1 and B is equal to 5, murag naging ani ang imuhang gibuhat. Okay? So if A kay post-increment man is -1 and B pre-increment, so iyahang gi-evaluate diri isang value nga 4 ni B. Okay? So mo na ang iyang gi-evaluate. So this is true and true, mo nang display siya ni sulod. Because the result of this operation, true and true, is true. Okay? So mo tong nisulod, pero karon wala jud siya nisulod sa if nga statement. When the value of A was changed to 0. Kay ngano di ay? So take note. Ang gi-evaluate dira niya nga value, okay, is unsa man ni siya?
0, sir.
0. Now, what did I told you about short circuit
False
evaluation?
na siya daan, sir.
Pag abot niya false na daan, that means there was no way that minus minus B here is executed. Diba? Kay diri pa lang daan pagkakita niya ni A nga 0, wala na siya mo padayon nag-evaluate sa rest of the expression. Okay? So motong since false naman wala na mo print ang nisulod. Okay? And that is what is meant by kanang short circuit evaluation, guys. Okay? So mo nang be very careful when you encounter, okay, statement like this on your code. Nga ang pag-increment nimo gibuhat nimo diri mismo sa kondisyon. Okay? So as much as possible lihayan na ninyo ingana nga mga style nga nag-modify ka sa variable diri sa pag-evaluate nimo. Okay? So mo na ang ika-number 15. It could generally cause logic error. Okay? On the second operand. Unsa mang second operand kani? Kay nga naman di man siya ma-evaluate. So we are expecting here nga minusan niya si B. But since pag sulod pa lang diri nga statement ni false naman, kani nga statement minus minus B was never executed. Okay? So in some cases it could execute given that this is true, but if this is false, this statement will never be executed and it could cause logic error on your side. And that, guys, is the end of our topic for conditional statements. Okay? So, ready na mo og exam para midterm next week? Dili pa? Okay. Or maybe let's try to have more activities next meeting, no? Para more practice. Activities. Magunsa man ta next meeting ani kung di mo mag-activity. Mao naman ang coverage para sa midterm exam. Okay? Oy guys, activities ba? You shouldn't be afraid of activities. Kaya nga naman, that's practicing. Okay? So, parihara good na. If na kay game umaabot, di ba? Di ba day ka mag-practice? Di ba day na nimo i-simulate kung unsay mo gawas sa exam or mo gawas sa inyuhang game. Di ba? Labi na ka ng mga players dira og ML mo diretso day kag sulod sa competition, dili day mo mag-warm up practice sa imong mga ka-works. Di ba? Before mo musud og competition. So, maura pod na siya sa programming, guys. Okay? The more you program, the more you are exposed to mga strategies in coding. Okay? Para the next time mo solve kag nga nga problem, na kay idea of possibly unsay mo gawas. Okay? So instead nga it will take you 3 hours to analyze the problem, since nakaagi naman ka na nga problema ha, ang 3 hours nimo will be shortened to 3 minutes na lang. Okay? So sige, next meeting we'll have more exercises activities on programming. Okay? So katong mga naggamit og cellphone, okay? Though naas day option nga mo gamit og PC, i-prepare lang ng PC ninyo daan for next meeting. Okay? Sige, now before we go, can we first turn on our camera please for our attendance? Kay 12 na ba? Ting taon na.
Natay intrams, sir.
Ha?
Intrams.
Intrams? Ang but lang noon saon ng intrams. Wa may schedule sad sa calendar gihatag nga nay intrams. Kano sa ng intrams? First semester ba ng intrams? Usually or second sem? Online swimming, no? Nindota na waji malumos. Okay, so sige. Ambot lang ang academic break, guys. I think ika-December naman siguro. Okay. Ay mura man sad mo elementary da nga naay break sa November. College biya mo ha. Ang inyong break is murag kwan pa na siya February padong second sem. Oh, kana. Oh, mana siya ang gipangitan yung break, guys. Semestral break, which is on February pa. Okay? So, mga 1 month po na siya. Okay? So, sige na, ligis. Insa pa ni siya.